Hello and welcome to Badgers Basketball Battlestar Galactica. This is Will Huth. You can, as a reminder, you can listen to this podcast on Google, on Spotify. I don't think we're on Apple. I don't have an Apple ID. I'm guessing most other places. Anyway, you can follow us on Twitter at Badgers Basketball BG, YouTube at Badgers Basketball BG. And if you have any questions, follow-ups, or if you just want to let me know how you disagree with anything I say here, you can send an email at badgersbasketballbg@gmail.com. On to the show. After last week, that was kind of an exhausting week as a Badger basketball fan. I don't know if I can remember a time, at least in recent history, where I've been this just kind of mentally exhausted as a fan, but can't imagine what it's like being on the team. They're the ones that actually put in the work. And excuse me, speaking of that team, one of the things I did say last week I was looking for was for the team to have some fight, team to have some grit. And I thought UW put in a good fight last week. It went one-on-one. And in both games, I thought they put in the effort, they put in the like I said, the fight, the grit, the want to for both games. And let's get into both of those games. The first game last week was a road game at Ohio State, which I was a little nervous about. And Wisconsin responded with having a 43-point first half, which is, I'm just going to assume that's the most points they've scored in a one half this year, although I haven't checked. Kind of pulled it out at the end, only won by 5. But man, that first half was fantastic. One of the things I've said a lot so far this season is how Wisconsin does in the paint, both offensively and defensively. And they made Ohio State just work for anything near the bucket. I wish I would have written this down, but I think their first 5 possessions, I think they got one post touch. And I think we had sometimes multiple in our first 5. And that just set the tone for the whole first half. We got good looks, we got to good spots. People were hitting some shots, not even at a crazy rate, just they shot the ball decently well. And hey, scored 43 points, which is pretty awesome. And they went 8 for 10 in the first half from the free throw line. Also awesome. And, I wrote down some notes here that I did kind of remember from last week. I kind of wrote down a handful of things I was looking for some of our main contributors. And I'm just going to go down this list. So Stephen Crowell, I mentioned, dude's got to be strong for a whole game. And I thought Crowell played really strong against Ohio State. He was grabbing boards. Zed Key is not an easy person to guard, and Steve just went to work. So that was fun to see. I thought Chucky Hepburn, especially in the first half, was far more aggressive. He was attacking off the bounce, he was attacking off the dribble, he was looking to get to the rim, looking to get in the paint, and that had great benefits for our team. And going forward, then we got Connor Essegian, who just, one thing I might, outside of his great shooting, I think my favorite thing about Connor Essegian this year is he has not taken a new task, or he has not taken an opportunity with any tentativeness this year. He has just said, I'm here to play, I'm here to score, I'm here to win. And he is, he's all in. And that's so much fun to see. And then Max Klesmit, I think this would have been his second game back from his injury. And I wish I would have counted his paint touches, because the amount of time that he got off the dribble and was attacking was really beneficial. Also taking threes in transition, which is this is one of the few things, not one of the few things, there's a handful of things that people like to complain about guard, and they kind of bunch him with Bo Ryan. There's some shots that guard allows, and Max was a great example of this in the Ohio State game, where Bo Ryan would have pulled anyone for shooting that. And guard says, hey, it's a good shot, take it. So I'm glad Max was keeping the attacking mentality up. The second half, however, I think it is best to describe that as, hey, we pulled out a win. We left when the clock ran out, Wisconsin won. And I think a lot of people after that second half ended, they want to point fingers at everything. Overall, though, our defense in the second half wasn't obviously it was the first half, but we still made Ohio State work really hard, and they scored 33 points. They shot 43% from the field, which isn't great. It's not terrible. 33% from 3, maybe a little high. That Wisconsin's going to do a little better from that, but that's still not a good, shooting percentage from 3. And they only shot 8 free throws. So those numbers, not upset with. I I think a lot of what hurt us, and I don't want to put blame on this person. I think Wall not being himself is really hurting us because second half, Ohio State really, I mean, they kind of went right back to us. They made our ability to get into the paint and score through the paint much harder. I mean, which they should. Like that was a great strategy. And I think had Wall been able to just give us, and it doesn't have to be a ton, just two or three buckets down that stretch, especially when things started to falter apart a little bit, or make a couple free throws. That might have been enough to essentially take that momentum Ohio State was bringing and be like, hey, that's enough. We're winning this game, and it doesn't even have to get that close. You know. Having said that, and this is a hill I would die on. I I would rather Tyler Wall try to still be himself and be aggressive and get back into the player he can be, where he was kind of last third of the season last year, than kind of just take a back seat or fade into the background. Because I think if that happens, that's just an element of our offense that's gone. And I mean, Wall's going to have to kind of work back anyway. I'd rather him do it now than have to do it at the drop of a hat whenever he's feeling close to 100%, you know? And so in the end of the day, which is what I'm going to take away from this Ohio State game is even though Ohio State is struggling this year, they still got a lot of good players in that roster. Chris Holtmann is a good head coach. I know Ohio State fans don't really have that opinion. If any of you are curious, go listen to almost any kind of like national college basketball podcast and just listen to what Ohio State fans are thinking of Chris Holtmann. It's, I think, a little overzealous, but this is not Ohio State podcast. And so, as I said, at the end of the day, they play good basketball for like 30 minutes, 32 minutes against a team that, while they are struggling, is better than the record indicates. So I'll take it. And I guess two things I just want to kind of mention or talk about here is so another, and I kind of mentioned differences between guard and bow. Another one is the playing time tendencies. I one time had an opportunity to talk to Keaton Nankerville about differences between Bo Ryan and Greg Gard. So Greg Gard was the assistant while Keaton Nankerville was there. Obviously, Keaton didn't play for Wisconsin while Gard was the head coach. But one thing he mentioned was I think Gard was more willing or more uh, ready to play younger guys that might not be ready for a huge role to let them, kind of find their game, give a couple minutes what they are good at doing. And Bo Ryan was more of a guy who was like, hey, unless if this player can defend at the level that I'm acceptable, I will accept, or can give us something on the offensive end that we can trust. Usually it had to be both, or at the very least more so the defensive end, let's be real. Then Bo Ryan was just like, no, like especially once Big Ten season play, he'd just be like, absolutely not. And I think with Gard, like even this year, like he has tried to get guys like Marcus Silver, Chris Hodges, McGee, Lindsey, like he's wanting to get those guys minutes. Even when we don't might not quote unquote need them, try to get them on the floor, try to get them on the floor. I think this is the first game, the Ohio State game, where we saw Greg Gard essentially be like, you know, I got to get my top 7 or 8. Get these guys off the bench just enough so my starters can give me the most minutes and let's get out of here with a win. So I down here the starters at minimum played 32 minutes. I think Max Klesmit played the least at 32, and I think I didn't write down who had the most, but I think it was a season with 35 or 36. Could be wrong though. As for the bench players, though, Gilmore was first with 18, Jordan Davis had 6, and Kamari McGee had 5. So that's wild if you think about it. That's a bench that has a total of, let's see, 29 minutes split between 3 guys, which is very unlike what Greg Gard has done in the past. So I don't know if this is something that is gonna lead to our team just be kind of worn down by the end of the year, but at the same time, I mean, he's doing something different to try to get out of this funk. So I got to give him credit for that. Um, and this isn't something I want to be a consistent thing, but our team won a game with shooting only 30% from 3 and 13 of 22 from the free throw line. So yeah, the free throw percentage is still bad. However, those 22 free throw attempts, that's a very good thing. That I enjoyed. It's just the 13 should be a bit higher. All right. Now on Northwestern, this was, I mentioned that feeling tired as a fan. This is where most of it came from. Just I remember leaving the game and thinking to myself, like I said, this is a really exhausting team to watch this year. And just I mean, my goodness. I kind of mentioned this the other week. I feel almost guilty saying this, but just put the ball in the hoop, you know? Like I don't want to be this fan saying, "Oh, we need to put the ball in the basket." Like I think I mentioned this, like no duh, but my goodness, you have so many attempts, not even attempts, so many opportunities which have good looks. I mentioned before, we'll shoot okay from three and we'll have all these wide open threes are available, then we miss them. It's just like, if you're that open, it should be a little higher percentage wise. And then with his Northwestern game, I counted 8 missed layups or bunny shots really close to the rim. I've seen tweets or other people say a different number. I think eight's right around the middle. And so those are shots you got to make. I don't know, like half those, whatever it is. And then also there was 5 missed free throws. So I'm not going to count that last one by Klesman. He missed that on purpose. So that's for my numbers. That's 21 points. Very relatively easy points that just were left on the court. And that's ignoring some of these wide open 3-pointers, but that's 21 points, you know? And I saw another tweet and I grabbed that here. In Wisconsin's 2 losses to Northwestern, which were by combined 5 points, they missed 12 free throws. Again, I think the number is technically 13, but I'm not counting the last one by Klesman. So, and actually that free throw number could be more because now I know for a fact we missed a couple front ends of the 1-on-1. So we not missed, we had missed out on at least 12 points from the free throw line over 2 games, and we lost those 2 games by combined 5 points. And I feel bad again, just harping on not making shots at the same time. My goodness. Like they're called free throws. And this is such a cliche. I feel like that fan always bothers me. But we'll move on. I saw some mixed reactions about how we played defense. Because at the one hand, we gave up 54 points, and you might think, hey, that's great. On the other hand, we did a pretty good job defending them from the 3-point line. I didn't write down the percentage, but from the floor, they shot 46%, which I think is a little higher than we'd want. And I think Chucky had a quote at the end of the game, and he kind of mentioned that their defensive identity isn't quite where it is. And I, saw some people kind of say, "Oh, what are you talking about? You only get 54 points." And I think I gotta kind of agree with Chucky here. There was a couple times during that game last night where it just seemed Northwestern was getting bucket after bucket after bucket. And I'm thinking to myself, like, geez, like we need to stop here. We need to kind of not necessarily give our offense a break, but this is a team that, as Chucky kind of said, the identity for this program for so long is on defense. And sometimes it feels like we are letting teams score too many consecutive baskets, So at the end of the day, like I said, I mean, 54 points, that's a good number, but it feels like it could have been a little lower. And I'll get more about Chucky in a little bit. I also want to quick just shout out to Kamari McGee. He didn't get a ton of minutes. I thought I had him down. I think I thought I saw him he logged 7 minutes. Let me double check that real quick because I don't want that to be an incorrect value. Oh, well, only 4. It felt like more. Anyway, I thought he played good in his minutes. I thought he played good defense. I feel like in general, he is finding a way to be the player he was at Green Bay, which, I mean, if you watch the guy play, he's fast and he's a guy that can attack very well. And, obviously you're playing better competition, you got to learn. And I think he's doing a better job with that lately. And I like I said, I thought he gave us good minutes. So a shout out to Kamari. All right. And as I said, I just want to talk about Chucky Hepburn a little bit because I think some people are micro analyzing his game a little bit, especially with, I don't know, some of his decision making down the stretch. And let's first kind of recognize how much he has wildly improved from last year. And he was already a very good player last year. I think a lot of a lot of credit goes to Connor Essegian for the shooting he's had this year, which he totally deserves. But Chucky Hepburn in his own right is also a very good 3-point shooter. I don't think he's taken 100 threes quite yet, but he's close. But he's shooting like nearly 50% from the 3-point line. I think last I saw it was at 47, 46 or 47%. So like that's a fantastic number, and especially for that usage, shooting 103 so far this season. That's a very good thing. And I think we should also remember, we lost Johnny Davis and Brad Davison last year, and Chucky and some other guys, they're still trying to figure out how they're filling that void. And I've said for almost every show I've had, I think that I would like Chuck to be more aggressive, and he is. I think with part of that is there's this growing pain that's going to happen. Now, ideally, would have this happened, I don't know, a month or two ago in the non-conference schedule? Yeah, that would have been ideal. At the same time, I think you gotta let that growth happen when it does. Okay. And geez, there was this, I'll just say this. There was this individual sitting, I think in the section over from me at the game last night, who at one point was just yelling from the third level, like, you need to pass the ball. You never pass. I was like, okay, first of all, that's wrong. But anyway, or excuse me, but the point is who else is going to take the shot at the end there? I mean, Wall's been struggling. I think with the matchup Steve had down low, even though Nicholson was out, but he wasn't really making the move to get a ball in the post. I think people will say, oh, like have Connor shoot it. Connor had Chase Audige on him at the time, and I wouldn't have been upset if Connor shot it at one point, but Chucky, I mean, he got in the paint every time, so I'm not upset with any of those shots. And I mean, as I mentioned earlier, we had like 8 missed layups. So I mean, if I'm not upset with the looks from Chucky. Other than the last shot, I think he faded away a little bit. I think he would have taken like a half a second to just kind of go up strong and straight up. I think he might have gotten the foul call, but I'm not about to be nitpicky to that point. Okay. And I almost wasn't going to say this, but I will. There was some post game comments about that post game, just about that final shot and kind of sequence from Chucky. And Chucky and Guard were asked about it, and their comments were a little different. I think some people are trying to make a mountain out of a molehill, so to speak. And what I took out of it is both Chucky and Guard want Chucky to take the shot. If anything, their difference was where on the court do you want to get it, you know? So I'm just gonna be annoyed if that becomes something it's not. But I guess I'll just say that, okay? And I don't know if I did this last week. I feel bad if I didn't. But my pick for who gets to choose dinner this week is Connor Essegian. I His growth this year is first you got to give credit to Connor because, like I said, he has taken every challenge this year with just a mindset of I'm here to win, I'm here to score, and is not held back at all. And I think you also got to give credit to the coaching staff and Greg Gard and the players in this Wisconsin team because he came in and he clearly showed he was a good shooter. And Wisconsin essentially leaned into it and said, okay, like show us how good of a shooter you are. And he is not disappointed. I think last night he was 5 for 11. And I think he had a couple early misses he was pretty upset about. But geez, he had some shots down the stretch. And when I was there, I was like, oh man, that's a good look. But I thought Northwestern did a good job of closing out. And he still hits them. There was one play, oh, it was gorgeous. I'm trying to learn how to go from video to GIF or GIF, however you say it. And there's one possession where Chucky was trying to get something on the left side of the court, and they did a good job doubling. And you see Connor go from the right wing, cuts across the court, kind of under the hoop along the baseline, sets up on the right side of the court. And he did it with just no hesitation. And it's not like he sprinted over there. He was so fast. Northwestern just like couldn't catch up with him or missed him. But I think like I said, the no hesitation, waiting until his defender wasn't looking at him, and then just go. I mean, it was such beautiful basketball. It was, and also, I mean, the kid's a freshman. I'm really excited to see how he continues to improve. So, kind of gets a big dinner. Congratulations. I think this next segment I just in my notes here, I just have it titled like "The season is weird." You know, I think obviously we know this isn't the best quote unquote roster from like top to bottom. It has a thin bench. Ideally, there would have been another forward or big wing type we could have gotten in transfer portal, but that didn't work out. And we had this opportunity that I think the last bracketology, that wasn't actual bracketology. It was the fielding of 68. It was Field of 68 show. They had us as the first four out. And it's weird because a lot of our losses have been games we could have or maybe even should have won. Kansas, Wake Forest, Northwestern twice. I would argue the second Illinois game and Michigan State. That's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That's 6 games against 5 teams, and all 5 teams are probably. I don't know where Wake Forest is, but a lot of those games are against tournament teams. So I think it's frustrating. We lost some of these. At the same time, we've seen flashes both for like parts of individual games and for games at a time where we see how good this team can be. And I think it's just a whole bunch of little things that have added on and added on and added on, and it's just kind of worn down this team. Whether it's from Walls or Max's injuries. I mean those are 2 of your starters on a thin. Like I said, there's a thin roster in the first place, so like you can't really afford to have anyone get injured in the first place. We have guys. This isn't stuff I'm blaming them. Obviously, I don't blame for injuries. I don't blame guys like Chucky or even Stephen Crowell who are still kind of figuring out what exactly their expanded role is when guys like Johnny or Brad, are gone. And those guys are still in their own right improving as players. We mentioned, like wish Crowell would be a little stronger, both kind of mentally and physically, which he's shown his ability to do, right? And then even things like Connor Essegian, who's played which I just talked about how great he's played lately. Um, he's also still in his own right growing and figuring out what his role is and how big of a role he's going to have. So there's been some games where him trying to figure out where that is kind of, I'm not saying this in a way that he cost us the game, but that process of him not being able to kind of be this consistent player is one of these factors that has hurt us in certain games, and these aren't really things we can blame players on. It's just kind of, there's been so many of these like individual things. And then it also doesn't hurt that, Jordan Davis, a player I understand why he is no longer starting. The dude's a solid 3-point shooter. He's not Connor, he's not Chucky, but he's really struggled in the new year. I think I have here he's shooting 22% from 3-point line since January 1st. And for a guy that's, I think his calling card is, 3-and-D hustle player. I mean, he got a couple of offensive rebounds last night. Those shots aren't falling. That's kind of a big chunk of, the role we were kind of hoping to have. So there's still a good amount of season left. And I'm not, this isn't, like this season could have been good. What was us? Not what I'm trying to do. I just also think it'd be really nice if a couple of these things could, I don't want to see be fixed because, like I said, I'm not trying to list these things as blaming other players. It'd be nice if they could trend in a more rapid direction. If they could trend with a steeper slope, you have the math term in there. If their increase is quadratic, if it could have a larger A value. I'm going to stop the math talk right now because I don't have many viewers to lose for those of you that are listening. All right, so moving on. As I mentioned many times so far, this team is a thin roster. I shouldn't say thin roster. They have a thin bench, right? They, at best case, we can go 8 deep. And that 8 is a soft 8 because I think usually it's kind of in McGee lately. He doesn't get in a ton of minutes. So the question was, how many of our 2023 recruits do we think are going to get significant playing time as freshmen? In one moment, I'll get a drink of water. All right, so how many do we think will get significant playing time as freshmen? Because, like due to depth, at this point, I'm almost anticipating in terms of a freshman class, like the highest percentage or the largest number of freshmen getting minutes right away. Maybe not necessarily starting, but getting minutes, you know. And for those that don't know, we got four players coming in. We got John Blackwell, a combo guard from Michigan. We got Gus Yalden, aka the Gus Bus, who's currently playing in Indiana. Although I think he lists his hometown. He still might list his hometown as Appleton. I'm not sure though. We got Nolan Winter out of Lakeville, North Minnesota, and then Jack Janicki out of White Bear Lake, Minnesota. Janicki is coming in as a preferred walk-on. So I'm just kind of curious, like how many of these guys are going to get minutes. So I think with John Blackwell, like I said, combo guard, he'd be really nice to have this year to be another guy to come off the bench, give us some good minutes as this two or a three. Reportedly, or from read from others, he's probably going to come in and be ready to play on defense. That's just what I've heard from those that put in a lot of work covering high school basketball. For what it's worth, and this is from someone who watched maybe three or four of his games that were being streamed from his I think he plays on the EYBL, which is like this elite Nike AAU circuit. I did watch some of his games, and his offense is willing, or his offense is like the base is there. Like I saw one game, and I don't want to compare. I hate comparing young players to like former very good Badgers. I don't think it's fair to the Badgers already put in the work and it's gone. It's not fair for this kid coming in to like be pigeonholed almost. But he did. I'll just say this: he did things in this AU game where I thought to myself, I just watched Johnny Davis do that for an entire season. You know, so I think he has elements of his game that are I think people will see and be like, ooh, like Johnny Davis did that. You know, I think the issue is though he definitely needs I think more reps and a little more experience on the offensive end. However, he can play defense right away. He'll get opportunities to get on the court. So I'm not expecting him to be Connor Season by any means, but I'm expecting. I think of the four, I might have him as the best chance, but who knows? Then going down the list, we got Gus Yalden. He's a guy. His skill set is there. If you watch him play, his hustle is there. Like talk about a guy that that has grit, right? I think the question most have, or how will he adjust to playing Big Ten defenses? Because he's a little short for a center. He doesn't have athleticism. And I guess I would answer that question with another question, and that's, will he have a harder time than other freshmen coming in? Because he's playing in a very competitive high school league at I think it's called La Lumiere in Indiana. Like he's playing against some of the top competition any high schooler will play during a high school season. He played in one of, if not the most competitive AAU circuits, and was playing against players that are going to be Division I prospects, and he would score on them. Between his pick and roll game, post up game, pick and pop game, like he. So am I saying he's going to come in and just keep doing what he's been doing? Like no, he's going to be a young player. There's a transition. I get that. I guess I'm curious if he's going to, I don't know, struggle. I don't know if that's the word, as much as people think he might. But again, we'll see. And then there's Nolan Winter, the last of our scholarship players. And 10 years ago, or like 5, even 3 years ago, shoot, I think most would probably agree he would have needed a year in the weight room before he got on the court. And now just with the way basketball is kind of progressing, I don't know if that's really like a surefire thing anymore. Because the skill set's there. He's a very skilled player. He's a good shooter. He's got a good handle. And I think initially, I think people were pegging him closer to a Tyler Wall role, but then he grew to be, I think he was last I saw him listed was at like 6'10", maybe even 6'11". I don't know, but he's this long, lanky player. And he's, not a freak athlete, but he's a decent athlete. So I'm of the opinion that say if the guy can play, let him play. This is a different era, and kind of let him figure his game out from there. Especially like I said with the skill set he has, because I think in an ideal world at 6'10", if he could be a Tyler Wall kind of player, he might not be as much of a what's someone looking for? Um, Kind of like a Swiss Army knife defender and guard so many positions. But even if it's a guy that could like play the four, so to speak, but can guard other teams' small forwards, and then we could have three guards in addition to him in the center. Like that's not a bad case because then we got three guards that can hopefully all switch. So, we'll see. I think part of it is to see how Nolan is going to come in. Is he going to be like a Tyler Wall that could be kind of a 3/4, or is it going to be more of a traditional four? But again, we got to wait till, geez, what, October until we probably see some highlights about practice, but oh well. And then, I included Jack Janicki, even though he's a walk-on, just because supposedly, he came to UW's camp last summer and played really well. And so I'm just wondering, again, just based on our depth and like from what I've seen, I'm wondering if he could be almost like a point guard. And considering right now our backup point guard is only getting 4 or 5 minutes a game tops, like could he take minutes? Like I don't know. I'm not saying he will. I just think based on what we've seen and just knowing that Janicki is better than most walk-ons that are coming in, we gotta ask that question. Okay. Excuse me, my dog is being a little crazy. All right, back to it. Um, yeah, and then lastly, the we gotta wonder is there gonna be a transfer? I think based on what I've seen, we're gonna have one spot open. But like who knows? We might have players leave. We might not have that spot open because of the way scholarships work is just it's not as easy as it used to be to count. I think if UW had their choice, they'd go after kind of a wing type player, maybe a big wing type. Maybe not quite like a Tyler Wall, but just someone who's with decent enough size where they won't get bullied, so to speak, and can be a threat on the offensive end. But I think that would be a player a lot of teams would want. So might be slim pickings. All right, let's talk about next week a little bit. You get a quick drink of water again. All right. We got two games on the road. You got Penn State. They play Wednesday the 8th at 7:30. Then Nebraska Saturday the 11th at 3 p.m. Geez. This time last week I said we needed the next two. And I think this week we kind of we're not at the part of the season where we need to win out, but it'd be nice to get these two. Jeez. All right. So Penn State, we've played them already. Had an exciting home win against them. Geez, what? About 3 weeks ago or so. Their last four games have been kind of weird. They're 1-4 with a 20-point win, two 20-point losses, and then their third loss was a 9-point loss to Nebraska, who's the other team we're playing this week. And this is a game I'm intrigued about because the second half of that Penn State game was essentially UW just outworking Penn State to get that win. And we disrupted their offense. We didn't let them get the looks they wanted to. This is, like I said, this was a fantastic second half, especially defensively. UW did the first time around. And we essentially made them only go through Pickett or Funk. The entire second half, I shouldn't say every single possession, but so many possessions were just Pickett getting the ball, Funk doing that little ghost screen, and then them just trying to get Pickett at the rim or Funk for a three. Pardon me. And so my question is, how effective will that be? / how effective will our defense be this time around? And how effective are Stephen Crowell and Tyler Wall going to be on the offensive end? I don't think we need them to go off for like 20 each. It would be nice to maybe get them both in double digits, kind of have that paint presence. I think their bigs were in foul trouble a lot for that first game, and that was also a big difference maker. And actually, we should also add Max Pleasant will be back for this game. He missed definitely the whole second half and a good chunk of the first half because we got clocked right in the face. So this is a game I think UW can win. It in terms of a shooting contest though, that won't bode well for us. And then for Nebraska, I think this is the Big Ten team I've seen the least so far this year. So my notes aren't as good as this for this group as they are, I think, for some other teams. So I apologize for that. Their conference wins aren't great. They're Minnesota, Penn State, Iowa, and Ohio State. But to be fair, those are 4 of our wins too. So whole glass houses and stones thing here, I guess. To their credit, though, they beat Creighton although Creighton, this is when they were struggling earlier this year, and Creighton's kind of turned it around. That's still a good team, you know. They're not a great 3-point shooting team, but they got Derek Walker, who I think he's given us problems in the past. He's our leading scorer. And then I'm gonna make sure I say this right. I think it's Casey Tominaga, I want to say. He's their best 3-point shooter. He's just under 40%, their third leading scorer. So that seems like a guy Klesmit will take, because what I remember about this guy is he's not much of a 2-point scoring threat. So if Klesmit can just get in that guy's shorts on the 3-point line, that sounds like a good matchup for us. And I will take this opportunity. Last thing, real quick. I am still upset Nebraska fired Tim Miles, because he was a good dude. And he was the one that turned Nebraska around and gave him some juice. He's coaching in San Jose State, I think. Pretty sure it's San Jose State. But yeah, I missed Tim Miles. He was a good dude. All right. And to wrap up the show here, I'm going to kind of list some things I'm looking for again. And this is going to sound really simple, but honestly, like, if this team can just play some good, consistent defense and put the easy put the easy shots in the hoop, like, I'm fine with that. Like, consistency and ball in hoop. That's all I really want to see, you know? And I guess when I say ball in hoop, I mean, hey, make your free throws, make your layups. You got to shoot a good percentage if you're wide freaking open from 3. Okay. And when I say consistency, it's that paint defense. And honestly, I think rebounding has been a thing Wisconsin has been criticized for, but in some of their nice wins, like Marquette, um, Iowa first time around, like, they got rebounds when it mattered, you know? So I'll just say that. All right. That'll be it for today. As a reminder, you can get us, not us, because it's just me. You can watch this podcast at Spotify or Google Podcasts. You just got to search Badgers Basketball, Battlestar Galactica. You can follow me on Twitter at Badgers Basketball BG. You can watch us on YouTube at Badgers Basketball BG. And you can send emails to badgersbasketballbg@gmail.com. And with that, hope you all have a good night or good day whenever you listen to this, and I'll see you next week. Bye.